Hello and well met. This is Layron with the Fantasy Grounds Academy. I'm going to be working on a map. This is from a map pack that is on the Fantasy Grounds store. It's under the Meander Maps by Chris of Game Tile Warehouse. Essentially, this is the Haunted Mansion type theme. It's basically called the Horror Haunts, and it is a cool map pack. The only thing about these meanders is that they're quite old. They haven't been brought up to the standards of Fantasy Grounds. They are third party. So I use these a lot for practice, and I do like the way they look. This actual version is a lower quality because it is put in for Fantasy Grounds Classic, essentially. So that's how long this map pack has been around. Chris was one of my favorite cartographers, and I had kind of talked him into trying to make maps for Fantasy Grounds, and he did for a while. But this is right before Unity came out, so that's why these don't have line of sight on them. So I use these for practice quite a bit. But I do appreciate the art, and I do like the detail that he puts into his maps. Sometimes they can be a little crowded or busy, but for the most part, they're pretty decent. So this is basically the first floor of a haunted mansion. So I'm going to put on some line of sight, some occluders, those sorts of things. And I do this occasionally to not only get used to the map tools, but to test things out, to make sure I still understand what I'm doing, and to keep kind of a fresh rotation of videos, because a lot of times these things change. The behavior changes. As a matter of fact, we are now using Fantasy Grounds 4.5.1. So I'm excited to see what this map will look like in more of a 3D view. But initially, I think what I'm going to be doing is first adding the line of sight to this map. I'm going to add a little bit of ambience and some occluders to it, and then maybe a few assets just to kind of give you an idea of how something like this might go together. So this map was obviously already created outside of Fantasy Grounds. Fantasy Grounds now has the capability of building content. You can export it and then re-import it as a finished product, or you can use a third-party tool. Fantasy Grounds has tools now where you can import stuff from other map makers, so that's pretty cool. So what we're going to be doing is just kind of adding line of sight, kind of making this map work in Fantasy Grounds, and add some occluders. I'm not going to get too fancy with it, but I do want to go over some things about the map tools and such. So first things first is you're going to want to figure out how exactly you want to attack this. So generally speaking, I will analyze the map, and then I'll take a look and see what I need to do. So it looks more like I need to focus more on the house. This outside area, not as much. So I'm not going to worry about line of sight out here. There is a wall out here, but since I'm not connected to any other maps, I'm not going to worry about that. All right, so what I'm going to first do is start with the line work. So the line work is going to consist of mostly all the walls. So there are some ways to kind of make this a little easier on you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure the map is unlocked. And then over here on the right, under the map tools, I'm going to check the scale here. So it looks like the scale is already set. So if I click on this, it's already set to 69 by 69. That's kind of a weird grid size. So perhaps this can be adjusted if need be. It doesn't look like it lines up with anything, so let me try 50 by 50. Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but it just seems like that was a little weird, but I guess it does make more sense. So let's go with 72. Yeah, I don't know what happened, but it looks like they changed the scale, meaning whoever put this up, maybe Chris did, I'm not sure, but it is a little bit odd. So what I'm going to do is actually set this back to 50, because I know most of these maps were scaled at 50 at one time. And then I'm going to go to the layers tool, and I want to turn, let's see, do I want to turn that on or not? Yeah, I'll do that so I can see a little bit better. And what I'll do is take this map and kind of move it, see if it'll let me, yeah, right now it's locked. Yeah, so that's a lot better. So that's what I did is I know that the maps were originally made for 50. Now everything lines up. So it was at a weird scale, and it was off. So if I go back to the grid, it's at 50 by 50, and looking at this Now it's all squared up. So that's basically how I fix that. But generally speaking, it helps to know like what the actual scale is. So that's something that I'm only familiar by chance. A lot of times you won't know that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is start with the line work. So that's usually the most part of the of mapping. And if you notice down here on the bottom, there's new navigation bar. You can use the WASD keys, or you can click on these little arrows. So now what I'm going to do is go to the brick wall symbol, and then I want to go ahead and I'm going to use the rectangle tool for now, because I'm going to actually place a big rectangle on here and work from there. So I'm going to go with this rectangle tool, and I'm going to left click and drag and kind of create this big square area. But what I want to mention is that you don't have to go right up to the edge of the wall, and it doesn't have to be perfect. So I'll get close, but not, it doesn't have to be just right. Oops. I don't know what caused that. Okay, so that's the preliminary line right there. And now what I'm going to do is draw some of the other lines in here, and then later on I'm going to break them up so that this way it's a lot quicker than switching back and forth between different tools and different lines. So now I'm going to go to the line tool and kind of do the same thing. So I'm just going to single click, hold down shift, which will make a straight line, and then double click. So that's how you make a straight line, so you don't have to mess around with trying to get it straight. You just hold shift down while you're dragging, and that will allow you to draw a straight line. And you want it to intersect. You want these little vertices. If you try to click exactly on that line, you're probably going to end up missing it anyways. So you might as well just draw through it, because we're going to go back at the end, and we're going to actually take and put those in, and we're going to make adjustments and such. So don't worry too much about the lines going over. Again, I'm going to click to start my point, hold shift, and drag down and double click. And that's going to make this line. So I'm just going to go in and make all the hard lines first, all the edges, and get all that work done first. So again, shift, drag, double click to end the line. Same thing up here. Click. Basically, I'm going in the center of the walls, double clicking, just making sure I get the whole full length. These walls here are a little bit more difficult because they are angular. You'll find that a lot of times you can't use the square tool when that happens unless you drag it and move it around. So I'm just going to take this center point as my guide, and then I just kind of eyeballed it, and then I use that for my line, because that's not a 45-degree angle, so I couldn't use the Fantasy Grounds shortcut version of it. Let's see, what do we got here? So again, it's kind of an odd angle, so I have to kind of do this one manually. And as you can see, I didn't join these up, but that's okay because I can come back and fix that. So let's see, what else do we got? So we got these rooms partitioned off. We got a staircase here that I'm probably going to have to do something with. And then I got this area up here. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to click here, double click out here, and I'm going past the line intentionally. And I'm going to do the same thing out here. Yeah, that's not where I wanted to start. Let's try over here. There we go. And then to kind of satisfy this, I'm going to do is take and click here on, I'm going to go with these little front pointed out the bay windows, and I'm going to hold shift and drag down and double click. So that basically took out, it added this wall and the other wall down below at the same time. So these are like little tips that you can use to kind of help you kind of speed up your process a little bit. And let me see if I missed anything else. It looks like I got everything. So this here is a staircase with a bookshelf underneath it. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to put glass here. So this is essentially like putting a window I'm only doing that so that when people go here, they can't just go through this wall, but they can still see it. And that's why I'm doing it that way. So here's a staircase with the railing, and I'm just going to make a window here at some point, and then I'll put the doors in and that sort of thing. But let's go and take a look at the line work. Let's see how we're doing there. So once you're done with all this, you go in and make your adjustments, and you can cut off these little tails so you don't have to worry about those. So I'm going to go ahead and click the select button here. It's important that you learn to switch between the tools, because if you accidentally think you're going to be dragging something and you're one of the drawing tools, it'll start drawing a line. I don't know how long it took me to get rid of that habit, but I finally broke it. It was really hard. I still do it occasionally, but not as much. So I'm just single clicking on these little endpoints, and that will get rid of them, and it will keep the vertice, which that's what we want. And that's just a way to go in, clean these up, make your adjustments. And I'm going to explain some of these lines and how to deal with them too. So that's really all this is kind of learning how to optimize your time and your effort by getting used to the behavior of the tool, because sometimes that's the hardest part, is just learning the behavior, like how it actually works. So here's a segment, a line segment that I don't want, right? This is something that was left over from just adding all the lines in. So what you can do is add another line, left click and double click just to add the line here, and it adds this vertice. So I'll go back to this pointer, double click, which is going to select all three of these, and then I'm going to hit the delete key, and that gets rid of that little vertice. And then if I single click on this point, it's going to get rid of just this segment or this line. So if I click delete, that gets rid of that. So that's how you get rid of lines that are, extraneous, or you don't need them anymore. And then the lines that I had out here that weren't lining up, essentially, I could go in here and redraw them. I don't know what happened to this line. I think I accidentally deleted it, which is fine because it wasn't lining up. So I can come back and adjust this line, go into the line tool again, single click, and then come on down here, but see how far off it is. So this is what I'm saying, like you draw past where you think you need it, essentially. And then I will take this line here. I'm going to go back to the selection tool and just drag this out. That's not what I wanted to do. I guess I'm going to have to draw another segment, because because I cut that segment out already. Now it's not there anymore, so that's okay. So I'll go ahead and just click on this dot here and then draw through, double click, and there's my segment. So this is kind of the thing that you'll learn, like what's worth your time, your effort. What exactly do you need to do to get this job done rather quickly? And there again, see, I didn't worry about clicking on the line. I just draw right through it. And that's an important aspect to learn for the map tools. Because if you try to click exactly on that line where you're doing all your line work, you're probably going to miss it anyway. So you'll have to come back and adjust it. So you might as well just do that. So single click on the points gets rid of the segment. If you double click, it'll get rid of the whole line. You don't want that. Once in a while, I'll zoom in to check to make sure these lines are actually connected, because sometimes they fall short and you don't notice it until after the fact. So now down here, I'll go ahead and clean this up. There we go. So let's see what else we got here. Oh, again, here's another line segment I want to get rid of. So I'll go ahead and take and put in this line here. Single click, drag, double click. That adds this temporary line. Going to the selection tool, double click, and it grabs these 3 points. Hit the delete key, and then just single click on this line, hit delete, and that gets rid of that. So that's how you can edit these. Let's say you didn't want this point right here. It's just driving you bananas. You can single click on it, come over here to the remove selected points, and you can move that. But the problem with it was associated with a line. So I'm going to hit Control Z, which will undo my last action. But that's how you get rid of line segments in the center. Is let's say you accidentally created this line here. what you do is, like I showed before, you just double click and make sure you're in the selection tool, and that gets rid of that segment. Then you single click, and that should get rid of this just one little point. So if it's not at the end point of a line there, it's in the middle, you can use that to basically remove the point. You want to add a point, it's kind of the opposite. If you didn't hit the space bar when you were drawing or making multiple lines, but you want an extra line in here or a vertice for future use, you can just left click and create another line, and then come back to the editing tool, and then make sure you're on the selection tool, double click, and then leave that point there, and then you can use that later on. So if you need to tie into something else later, but that's how you insert a point. Now if I single click on it and use this remove selected points, that'll get rid of it. So that's how you add a line or take away a line. When you're drawing the line, you can hit the space bar. That's kind of like your shortcut, and it'll insert points along the way. But if you forget to do that, or you realize later that you want a line there, that's how you enter those in. So I'm almost done with the wall, so I have to get rid of this piece here. And it looks like I got it pretty much everything else done. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to draw a line through it, and then go to the selection tool, double click, hit the delete key, and then click this single point and delete that. So that's how you use the line. So you can insert lines, you can remove them, you can re-stretch them, you can use the shift key to make them straighter. You can go at like a 45 degree or 90 degree angle. But if you have a building that's like this angle right here, it's a little bit harder to do that with Fantasy Grounds. So you have to do that manually. But in most cases, you can use these shapes to kind of speed things up for you. So if you joined me in the beginning, I actually used the square tool to do this whole thing, and then I filled in these little rooms. So that's kind of the way I attack it when I have that option. So now what I'm going to do is, these stairs are driving me bananas because this could make or break your game. It could make it annoying or fun, depending on how you do this. So I guess I'm going to put a window here, and it's not really going to be a window. It's just going to block movement. So what I want to do is go to the window tool, and I'm just going to draw this kind of weird window shape around here. And that way the characters can't go through it, but they can still see. So you kind of emulate the railing. So if they want to jump off and over the railing, you'll have to talk to them, that sort of thing. So what I'm going to do is kind of just come off the bottom here. I don't really have any reference here to really make the railing, but I'm just going to pretend I do. And I'm going to do the line tool, and I'm in the window tool. So this is just a way to kind of emulate this railing that's going to be in here. So I'm just going to come through here, and you can, like I said, you can use the shift key to make this straight. I don't want it exactly straight, so I'm going to just do something like that. Come over here, do that, come over here. And what I'm doing is kind of making like this U shape for the stairs for the railing. And then what'll happen is when I'm done with it, it'll close it up, but it'll also make it so that players can't just walk through that. They can walk up to here, but they cannot walk off the edge. So that's just kind of a way to kind of focus them or kind of railroad them into that spot. And I'm going to check my thing. So what I'm saying is, here's where you'd miss sometimes if you think you're clicking on a line and you're actually not. So I'm going to go ahead and just do that, and then drag this over, and straighten that up. So that's how you fix your lines. You got to pardon my voice. I had a really bad cold for a while. It's kind of been out of it for about a week now. Just starting to feel better. So let's see. So yeah, so that's the main, that was just kind of a way that you can use lines to, or other tools to kind of block things. All right, so now for doors. So the doors behavior has changed recently. You can make it a line if you want now instead of having it as a block. I'm going to continue using it as a block because of the fact that when you go to click on it, I don't know, I'll have to look to see how they change that, but that behavior's changed a little bit. So I want to put in a, I'm going to put in a door in a couple spots here, And then these places where it's supposed to join to other maps, I'm just going to make those windows. So I'm not going to worry about those. But those are set up to where if you had another image, another map like this, you could connect the buildings together. Let's see, what do we got here? Okay, there's some furniture, there's a fireplace. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do this, the front door and this study, or this, like, I guess, entertainment room, kind of like a study or poker room. So traditionally, we were taking a rectangle tool and then going to the door tool. And you essentially would draw a rectangle around this. So let's see what that looks like. So left click and drag, and that will give you your rectangle. Or you can just do a line now, I guess. I'm not sure how it works, but we'll see. Yeah, I don't know if I like that or not. Yeah, I don't know. I'm so used to doing it this way that I'm going to go back to the rectangle because I'm not sure what it's going to look like in play because I haven't had a chance to see that part of it. But essentially, this is how you make your windows and doors, and that will cut out that center line for you. It'll also do it on windows. However, secret doors and the illusionary walls, you have to manually turn on the trim interior occluder button before you draw your line. So I want to go ahead and, oh, here's one more door before I switch. This is the one that goes into the dining hall. And then over here, there's a door between the kitchen, or the kitchen and here. So it's right here. And then, is there a door here? No, but there is a door here. This is probably underneath the staircase, probably a pantry or something. So I'm going to put that in there. But other than that, everything else is going to be windows. So I'll switch over to the window tool, and I'm going to do that in this area. I'm under the rectangle tool. These will just be windows instead of hallways or whatever, because I don't have another map to connect to, so I'm just going to turn these into windows. They don't have to be. You could just leave the wall there if you wanted to. This will be like a big bay window, I guess. Okay. So basically that's the line work. So if you get that part done, that's the biggest, probably the most work, depending on the map too, but that's the majority of the work. The other stuff is just decorating and adding the lights and such. So this isn't going to have a whole lot of light in here, but I do want to go over something that can be problematic for your map here. So I want to go and turn on the line of sight and see what it looks like before I go any further. So obviously you can't see jack diddly because I'm in the player preview. This is the GM mode. So there isn't any light at all. So what I want to do is go into the lighting tool. And then what I'm going to do is I want to go to turn on the ambient lighting because I have outdoor lighting. In this case, it'll be nighttime. So I'm going to use the drop down and use the moonlight, and that will light up the map a little with the moon. And then what you want to do is turn on mask, and you're going to mask this area here, which is your interior. So this way, it doesn't get impacted by the light that's coming from the outside. So if you have an indoor and outdoor map, this might be something you need to deal with depending. And then I'm going to hold the Alt key and freehand this area here because I didn't have a way to draw that in. Okay, so now when you go back to this mode here, this area is now masked off from the outside. So that's why you want to do that. Okay, so that's that. And then what you're going to do is I'm going to go back into the lighting for line of sight and then turn off. I want to turn off this for now so I don't get confused here. But basically you mask off the interior so that the outdoor ambient light is not shining inside. The only bad part about that is if you have light out here, like ambient light, it won't shine indoors after that reason. So you'll have to place artificial light outside the window to make it look like there's moonlight or sunshine shining in. So now that I have that, I'm going to add the fireplace. So this is where you can make things a little easier on yourself. And I might put a little line of sight on that bear. Maybe someone can hide behind it or something. So I didn't notice that till now. So if I go back into the line tool, I'm just going to use the ellipse tool or maybe just the line tool and then the terrain tool. And I'm just going to draw a little bit of this type of occluder on his head. So it'll cast a shadow, basically. And then if someone wanted to hide behind him, they could. Don't think that's going to happen, but you never know. And I just wanted to show you the occluders and kind of the use case more so than worrying about this bear. But essentially this is kind of how I would set this up if I was going to do it. Okay, so that's basically the bear's head, and maybe you would do his shoulders if you really wanted to make a point. But that's just kind of a up to you how you want to interpret this. And then also this fireplace, maybe you don't want them to move or be able to hang out there. So we could do kind of the same thing. We could block this. I would probably use glass so that they can still see it. They just can't walk through it. So I might do something like that where I might take the square tool, left click and drag, and then get this to a point where it kind of blocks that off so they can't just walk through it. And then if you need to, you can come in here. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Try it again. So left click, drag, and then put that in here. There we go. So this is just to keep blocking the movement, just so they can't move through there. You got to kind of be careful with these little cracks. I mean, it doesn't come up very often, but when you leave stuff like this, it messes with the characters will get stuck in the walls. What'll happen. So I'm going to drag this up and just kind of butt that up on there so that they don't go through. They can't accidentally move their token into that small area. It does happen occasionally, and it's annoying because it's hard to get them out. And then they're like, "Oh, I'm stuck. I can't move." And then you got to stop what you're doing, and it's really annoying. So that's just something that you'll come across occasionally. If your map isn't optimized well enough and it's got too many weird things like that, it can really piss you off while you're playing. All right, so now I'm going to do the fireplace. So the fireplace is essentially just kind of going to have you can put a torch light in there. I'm going to make it a little bit fancier because I want to show you some assets. So basically, I don't want to place the fireplace on the map itself. So I want to make sure I don't have that highlighted. So I'll just click away. And what you want to do is come over here, and first things first is I want to find some animated flames. I want a little bit of fire, essentially. So if you have the assets or you subscribe to the Fantasy Grounds subscription for the art packs, that's where you'd find a lot of these. So make sure you're in the images folder. And then I'm going to go back to the home key. And what you want to do here is you have to have 3 characters. So Fantasy Grounds space. And that's going to give you all the Fantasy Grounds packs. But I'm going to go ahead and search for animated fire. And I want to make sure it's spelled correctly and hit enter. And what you'll see here is here's a little bit of fire here. So I want to use this one to kind of emulate the fireplace, or maybe this one since it's constant. And I'll take that and drag and drop it down into my assets down below here. So I'll just take this flame, drag and drop it down here in the shortcut so I don't have to come back looking for this. Now I might want to find some firewood. Maybe there's some firewood. I'll see. Firewood, is there? Nope. How about wood? Nope, let me go back. Oops. Wood. We'll see. There's got to be something wooden around here. Yeah, so here's some furnishings. Yeah, I'm not going to worry about it too much, but essentially I was looking for like some wooden like utensils and wooden objects, but stuff to burn essentially. But I don't think I need a pile of wood. That it's not that important. Yeah, I'm not going to go through all that for just that. But you might want to put a chest here or something. Who knows? But this is just kind of a way to show you the assets. Maybe I'm starting to go too crazy here. Never mind. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to take this asset, and this is something you want to practice as much as you can for keeping things down. So if you close the asset window and you go back to it, it will tend to remember where you were last, which is really helpful. Before, it used to reset every time. That was super annoying. I'm glad they fixed that. Now what I'm going to do is place the flame somewhere in here. So here's the animation that I saved, and this is something you want to do if you're going to search for more than one item. And you can put them down here at the bottom so you don't have to keep searching one at a time. You do all your searches, drag them to your shortcuts, and then build your assets. It makes it a little bit more efficient. And what I'm going to do is take the animation. I want to click over to layers, and I'm going to place this on a new layer. And I want to left click and drag it up to this asset area. And it looks like this is 8 by 9. So that would be this whole room just about. So that's why I use this first before I place it. So I'm going to go ahead and take in maybe 2 by 2.3. Yeah, I think 1 is, or 1.5 should do it. That's 1.5 squares. And I'm going to click where this little vertex is, see what it looks like. Yeah, see, that's not even close to what I wanted, but it gives me a starting point. Now I'm going to actually go to the layer selection, and I'm going to distort it a little bit. Just going to drag this out and put this thing back here. Maybe put it in here, and then I'm going to hold the shift key to kind of get away from the snap to grid, or you can turn it off if you want. This way you can place it without it being annoying, and putting it to it'll try to snap it to the grid. So if you don't want that, you need more control, you could turn that off. But I'll turn it back on now. And now what I want to do is, since I still have this active, I want to go to this color picker thing and change the opacity a little bit. So instead of it being like that, I'm going to turn it down a little so it kind of blends in with the background a little bit more. And that's basically the majority of it. I might even turn it down a little bit more because I think it's too much. There we go. We don't want the illusion of this fire. We don't need a big, huge to do here. And then I'm going to go ahead and kind of smash that a little. And then, like I said, if you hold the control key, you can move this around freely. There we go. So that's just kind of give you the illusion of the fire, kind of like there's something there. And now that I have this thing on the map, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on it, make sure I have it highlighted, and go to the lighting tool. And now I'm going to assign actual line of sight, or the actual lighting, the radiant lighting. So I want to go down to the presets, go to torch, and I'm going to click on this image, and it will go on to this animated object. So if I click on the center of this here, it should technically add it. So if I go to add lighting, go to the presets for torch, make sure I still have this asset highlighted, and put it right there. So now what we got is, let's take a look at our work before we go any further. So that's what it looks like now with the effect on there. So that's kind of cool. I mean, it doesn't look perfect, but at least you get that illusion that there's a roaring fire in there. And then this thing here has the asset and the light, and you can always turn that off if you want. So if you don't want the players to see it, you can turn this thing off, but you can, that turns off all the light because there's no other light in there. But you get the impression that there's a fire in there. And the shadow that we put in there is casting off of this bear here. So that's kind of what that was for. So that's kind of a cool way to kind of creatively use some of the assets that you might have. And then for the outdoor, looks like there's a kind of a storm-like thing going on out here. So I'm going to go back to line of sight mode, and I want to turn off the lighting for now, because again, it can get confusing and it's hard to work with sometimes. So I usually turn it off temporarily while I'm working. And this outdoor, I'm going to assign this to have weather. So I only recommend doing 1 or 2 of these. And the reason for that is depending on your system and how complex the map is, these layers can get very, very taxing on your system. So I'm only going to use 1 or 2 and call it good. So what I want to do is come down here at the bottom, hit the effects layer, and then if I double click on these, I can retitle them. So I want to change the fire to, I'm going to say fireplace, so that way I remember what the heck it was for. And then I'll do the same. This is going to be actually rain. So I want to change that to rain. And then I'm going to bring up the effects here, come down to, I guess it's the rain. Yep, there we go. So there's the rain. And if you turn this up, the intensity, you can kind of see it more. And I turn the amount down a little bit so it's not as bright. And then you can change the direction that the rain is coming from. So the way this was drawn, it looks like the rain was coming down at this direction. So I'm going to try to match the direction that's shown here and painted on the image. So that's the direction. And then a little bit of blur on it to kind of get it to blend in. And then we're going to put a mask on it because we don't want it raining inside. So I'm just going to left click and get a majority of this where the rain is supposed to be, which is here. And then I'm going to hand draw by holding the Alt key and just kind of tracing inside the stairwell. And it depends on if it's covered or not. In this case, I'm going to say no. And then back in this little corner, I'll get that. Same thing with this little area back here. Get this area. There we go. So now it's raining outside, not inside. So let's see what that looks like with our line of sight stuff on. So it's kind of hard to see the rain in the dark. So you might have to play around with these settings. So let me go back in the effects tool, select the rain, maybe turn up the intensity a little bit. Just turn the speed down, maybe turn the amount up so you can see it a little bit better. And this is the kind of thing you're going to fight with, depending on what you're doing here. But this is basically how you would kind of isolate the weather from indoors to outdoors. So it kind of depends on what your needs are. But if you zoom in close enough, you could see it. It's almost not worth putting on there, to be honest, but at least you have that effect on there. And if you had sound effects and all that stuff, it would be pretty cool. But now it does occasionally flash if you have the intensity up enough and the players can see it. I think they added the storm back in there. I don't remember, but there was lightning at one point. But nonetheless, that's how you add that. So you can make folders so that you can organize your content. So I only have 3 things here, so I'm not going to worry about it. But if I was going to make an asset, I would want to probably put it all into a container, like a folder. That way it works, it's a lot nicer and organized. So that's a majority of what I would put on this map. There's really not a whole lot of need for it. Now to test it out, I usually put a character on here. So we have Garvin the Dark. He's kind of taken over this place. And I have him selected here, and I can't see he can't see much because he doesn't have any light. But if he comes in here, he does. So if I'm going to give him a candle, so if I come over to the effects area by the options where all the tools are, and let's give him a candle. I can drag it to either his token or I can drag it to the combat tracker. Now when I move them around the house, you know, you could see the locations, and then here's the door. So I guess they did make the door, basically they made it a little bigger so it's easier to click on. So you open the door, move through here, and then if you hold down shift, close the door, hold down shift, and now the players can't unlock it unless they talk to you. So that's how you do it. Shift and click on a door to lock it. In this case, I don't want it locked, but that's how you lock the doors. I think by default they might be locked. I don't remember. Don't quote me on that. It's been a while. So, but yeah, this is basically how you would set this up. And if you look at this fog of war, that's another thing that can tax your system. So if you don't need it for your NPCs, you can turn it off. So in the options here on the right-hand side, there's an option there where you can actually turn that on or off depending on what your needs are. So if I come down here and I go to, let's see, it's in here in the settings where you can actually turn the fog of war off. And that's important, especially if you're really hurting on resources and you're having a lot of issues. Want to make sure, I think it's off by default, but just make sure you don't necessarily have to have that on. So right now, token fog of war is on. There's PC only, and then it's off altogether if you don't want the fog of war, or you can turn it on. So I would just do PC, so it only shows for players and not for NPCs. You don't really need that. If you're the GM and you're controlling the NPCs, you don't need fog of war for them. So that will help alleviate some of the performance issues if you're one of those that uses lighting quite extensively. So that's a tip that you'll learn along the way. But yeah, it looks pretty good. It's not bad. Now, if you need to turn off the lighting in play mode, I can turn off the player preview. Does fog of war impact? I don't know, but I'd imagine it would, because it's rendering the on their computer. So it may. I don't know. But I know that it for overall for the game itself, I mean it does. So, but I wouldn't know. I'd have to test it, and even then, I don't have a good test environment. So maybe we'd find someone with an old computer and see if it does anything. But nonetheless, I have it on for players, so that didn't affect them anyways. But if you turn it off completely, maybe. So that's just a tip that you might find useful, especially if you got an older computer. Maybe that'll help. I can't guarantee it, but at least you'll have, you know, some recourse. So I want to see what this looks like. So come into this room, turn on this thing here. Yeah, it looks pretty cool. I like it. Oh, he's on the table. I didn't want that. So yeah, it's pretty dark and dim in here. So anyways, let's see what this looks like in the other mode. When I say other mode, that's the 3D mode. So if I change the camera, hopefully it doesn't crash on me. What I'm going to do is hit save. So right/save, enter, and that will save my work up to this point. And the only reason I'm doing that because I'm anticipating danger at this point because I don't know what it's going to do. So I'm going to toggle. Yeah, it seemed to do okay. And then come up in here. Let's see, where's my guy at? Oh, he's over here. Yep, so it looks pretty good. Not bad. So if you guys watch the conversion stream, I'm going to be going over this a little bit more for how to set these things up. These are your 3D view. This one looks okay. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's not bad. But you can see the height is kind of off. And what you have to do to fix this is to use the developer tool that they made. It's the 3D viewer metadata tool. What it does is it remaps the image to work with the 3D physics. So basically, it's like a tool that SmiteWorks put out, and essentially you can tell you can define where the top, the bottom, the center, and then you, if it's a floating creature, you can assign that. But essentially, you'll take this and do that, and it creates an XML file, which you'll have in the same folder as your other content. And what'll happen is it'll remap this so that when you do stretch it, or like in this case, I wanted to make it taller, but that also makes it wider. So the proportions are off a little bit, and that's a tool that you can use to offset it, but it's a lot of work. So, if you don't care about the scale that much, I wouldn't worry about it. But if you want it to look really good and kind of work with the physics a little better, you'll want to learn how to use that tool. It is publicly available. There is a video that shows how to use it, and I'm going to kind of focus on that Friday. So I'm going to working on converting images, and I think one of the things I want to go over is that tool, because it is new and it is something that may or may not come up. For a personal private game, you probably won't need to worry about it. But when it comes to commercial product, or when you're converting stuff, you'll probably want to get used to using that tool. So that's the Fantasy Grounds metadata generator for the 3D view. It only needs to be happen on this thing, because when you switch over to the other view, this view here, you don't need it. It uses your regular token. So this is kind of a new thing that you're going to experience when you have it. But this is an NPC, and if you unlock this and you click on the asset here, this is basically the token that comes from your tokens folder. This is the 3D image that's full, and then this would be like a regular image, like a artistic type thing, full body artistic image. And then you could share this picture here with your players if you want them to see the full image. So generally I would have the background, maybe I'd have some of the house in the background, something like that. But this is basically how this works. And what's really cool about this is if you close the map accidentally, you can click on this little target here and it brings the map back up. So if you are a player or a DM and you accidentally close your map out and you actually click on this, whatever last map you were on, you can click that, it'll bring it back up. So that's a kind of a cool feature that was added, kind of a quality of life thing. I don't know if it's useful, but it is there. But nonetheless, that's just a kind of a brief overview of some of the changes. So I'm going to actually do the work Friday. So make sure to mention your affiliate link and the sale before. Oh yeah, I got those actually in my description. Yeah, thanks for reminding me. I do have an affiliate link. One is for Fantasy Grounds, and then one is for the map pack that this goes to, which is on the Fantasy Grounds store. And then I have a regular affiliate link. So if you guys want to help support me, if you sign up to be an affiliate and you use my affiliate code to do so, every time you make a sale, I get 1%, you get 5%, and then Smiteworks gets their cut. So that's how that affiliate thing works. Now, if you do your own sale and you sign someone else up, you get 1% of theirs too. So yeah, thanks for reminding me. Yeah, I don't normally advertise that. I think it kind of goes without saying, but I do usually put that in the description of the video. So if you guys have any questions for me, let me know. But I just finished doing the line of sight on this map. I call these map challenges. I do this every now and then to keep practice. And also I'm checking out the changes. So I want to know what's been changing. You need a Humble Bundle link as well. Yeah, I do have Humble Bundle. I don't use it very much, but yeah, I probably should. But basically I was checking out the mapping tools, and then I was checking out the new 3D thing. And you got this free camera mode, and then you have the token view, which is interesting. I don't know if I like the token view yet. To me, without the skybox, it doesn't do it for me. I mean, I think it's too dark or too light, and it doesn't, I don't know, it just doesn't do it for me. So if I'm going to change it back to 3D, this one's okay. The other mode, I think I'll use it more once they figure out how to use walls and that sort of thing. But for the time being, I think this will work. I like how it rotates with you. That's kind of funny. If you move this around in circle, it like tries to follow you or keep an eye on you. It's like, I'm watching you. That cracks me up. Here's a proverbial bearskin rug. There is a, let's see, what is this? Oh, here's the bookshelf. So this is more apparent in this mode. Consider a bribe to make you do more work. Yeah, no doubt. So this is just basically a bookshelf, but this becomes a little bit more apparent in this mode. When you're in the top-down view, when you're top-down looking, it doesn't seem as obvious to me. It looks like it blends in more. So I guess the perspective does help give you some of that imagination. I forgot to look at the fire. What was I thinking here? I want to look at the fire in this mode. Let's see. What are we looking at here? Yeah, so fire doesn't really. Yeah, that's unfortunate. And then the other thing is it's very slow. I don't like that either. I think there's a shortcut key to make that happen quicker, but just to turn around is painful. Very painful. Yeah, I could be doing something wrong, but there we go. So, yeah, so you kind of can see the fire there, I guess. I wanted to see it in this mode just to see what it looks like. I'm going in the fire. But anyways, that's kind of, what it looks like in that mode. And then I'll come back to this mode. I like this mode. This is better for me. The other one is just kind of, it just doesn't look quite as cool. Like I said, once they get the skybox thing, even if you could just make this black or just say, hey, I want this to look like an interior, I don't even care if it matches or maybe it's something that will draw something that'll kind of vaguely match the color scheme, just so you're not looking at this blank here. That's the only complaint I have in this. And then there's turning this on or off. Boy, does that make a difference. So if you have a dark map and you're not using any lighting, it's really gonna be hard to see, which is true because it is a kind of a gothic horror type thing. Then he's gonna go outside in the rain. Let's see what that looks like out here. You can use the tilt, so I'm using the middle mouse button, holding down the center button if you have one, and you can change the angle. So yeah, I don't really see the rain in this mode too much. I mean, I'm sure it's there, but I know there was something going on with that at one time. Isn't the skybox color in the ambient light setting? I don't know. I'll take a look. So let's see. We'll go to the ambient lighting and presets, behavior. Yeah, this will probably change it, but I don't know. It doesn't really. See, that's the ambient color, but there's nothing in here that's going to give you this. It'll change this outside part, but this is dark mode right now. So it's not dark enough for me. And there's no interior mode, so I don't know. But anyhow, I don't see the rain, but if I switch over to this 2D mode and go outside, I still can't really see the rain. What's going on here? Oh, I don't have it on. Oh, yes, I do. Let's see. If I go there, go to effects. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I don't see it. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's something goofy going on with effects still with the maps. I mean, it's probably there, but because I have this lighting on and stuff, it's probably making it hard to see. Let me turn this off. Yeah, still don't see it. How weird. Oh, now it's raining out here. How weird. So it did